It's so cool that the Jesse Gender Show has met Mike McMahon, and I haven't, which is weird because I should have at some point in the past. Anyway, so we have the season finale of Lord X, the series finale of Lord X. We have a Klingon lady who is clearly the inspiration for Crass from going around fighting people and blowing them up and stuff. But it's not her because she gets dishonored at the end. It could kind of be her, but by the Chimera movie, it would be 2388, so it'd be like 5 years after the story. So we have the so that would be about right actually for her to be Crass, or at least Crass to be on her ship. It's probably more accurate because her name was Grilka or Srilka. It wasn't Grilka. That wasn't supposed to be the Klingon that Quark encountered. If that was the case, that'd be Crass's mom. Anyway, they're not going to do that. This is called the Next Generation. It's the finale. And the crew has to close the dimensional rift. The Klingons want to start up a conflict similar to that in the game, STO. We have Rutherford realizing his bionics aren't working right. He's a transhumanoid thing. They have to fix those. We have the ships changing to every ship class in honor of Trek Yards. Thanks to Titmas for including all of the ships they could think of in the dimensional rift, where the ship keeps changing into, including a sovereign and sovereignty. That's the line from this. The other berth, even the Freedom class, even briefly some of the other ones too. Even the Terran Empire one. They have to get through the rift and close it, or stabilize it, or the universe will be destroyed. Very silly Trek ending. Extremely silly Trek decision at the end with the rift near the station, and they're going to put Station 88, the mouth of the wormhole rift thing. Yeah, explore other universe. They needed the Klingon farmers because in order for them to seal the rift and make a dam. Not sure that doesn't matter if gluon tachyon particles don't actually do that. It's fine. It's Star Trek. They throw in things that don't make any sense, like Neil deGrasse Tyson and the guy going on about Star Trek recently. Star Trek things that do or don't work. The transporters really wouldn't work, but they did that as a cheat. They could get down. Anyway, so yeah, the story. Yeah, they have to close a rift to rip them all apart, and clearly they meant this to be the finale of one season. They're going to do another season, and but they were canceled. So they were going to do Starbase 80, which is they moved the Starbase to this story. So there is a spin-off coming, Starbase 80, with elements of the other stuff. There's a spin-off. We'll see how that works. I don't know if that's the sitcom or if that's just another one. That's their idea, their sort of pseudo spin-off, Deep Space Nine parody. That'd be cool. We've already done it over here at Starship Locations, but yes. And over here we did just complete the other. They just completed episode season premiere of our third season of Legacy, and a brand new series called Starship Locations Canary. It had to be pulled and then re-uploaded. It had some errors, but now it's re-uploaded and everything's fine. So go watch the thing. It had some production errors. They're fixed. Anyway, over here, and this episode incidentally did not stream to everyone with Paramount Plus, just some of them, and you had to reset your server and go to your other search thing to watch it. So that's what you do. You just go, okay, if you're using Firefox, just go over to your Netscape, or go over to your old, I'll tell them, go over to one of the other servers you have. So if you have Safari, go to that. Or if you have Microsoft, go to that and watch it there with the same password. I mean, give it away. Because what's Titmouse going to do at this point? There's a lot of cameos in there. That if you look real closely, the bar scene, there's a guy that looks kind of like it's Kal Kat, but it's not. It's not. It's a bigger guy. It's Shalavi from Trek Core who gets A mariner scares him, and he knocks over a plate of food. It's C'est la vie. It's not me. He's a bigger guy. He's a big guy. But in the cameo scene, if you look at the crowd, there was a sort of a balding guy with gray hair in the background, and it's me again. I mean, I don't have any lines. So yeah. But yeah, I keep appearing because I'm a Q in other universe. And since it's another universe, it doesn't matter. It's a joke. It's a gag. The bald dude that keeps appearing, that's Kal Kat. No. It's not just Mike McMahon messing around. No, it's Kal Kat. I didn't tell them to do that, but they keep doing it. They keep watching my stuff, and they keep doing it. So they have to close the rift and make everything all right in the story. The Star Trek thing. They have several. Talin and Tendi have an engineering moment. The other guy's an engineering moment. They kind of set up that Rutherford, when he gets his stuff off, is likes Tendi, even though they kind of did anyway. So it's kind of already there. Boimler and Mariner end up a thing, but they're now the co-first officers. Very Trek fan thing. Oh, co-first officers, co-captains. Nod to some of that earlier stuff where they did that, where there's two buddies that did a ship together, including Chimera from our game from 2005 and 2006, in which the story takes place in 2383. That would be around 2005, 2006. So they have an indirect reference to Chimera in the two characters. And also, it was pointed out during the making of this, because during the finale here, that the Greek goddess lady who shows up as one of the engineers as a young person on it, and she's an engineer, isn't Sandra Talisman from Chimera. No, it's Amanda Rumsey. It's Amanda Rumbley. That's who that is. It's young Amanda Rumbley. She shows up and goes, "Look, I'm a demigod thing." Yeah, that's who that is. It's Amanda Rumbley. It doesn't say in the story. It doesn't say that's who that is, but that's who that's inspired. That's who that is. And we get to see her in the pilot of the premiere of the years later, many years later, in that story. She gets to show up in Starship Legacy. Yeah, I kind of expected them to throw some sort of a curveball and have Picard show up or have Riker show up. They didn't do that, which was interesting. The Enterprise does show up. The Enterprise E shows up at the station at the end. They cut to a shot of it from the Enterprise E, but we don't know what it did. After that, in the story. Yeah, so I connected to my fan films, even though it technically isn't. But yes, they all grow up to be the later commanders of ships and stuff. Not sure what happened to Ransom. I never explored his character. I don't know what happened to him after he became captain of the Cerritos. There is a Cerritos A in the 2400s. There is also a California A in the San Jose. And there was a San Jose A, so they made another one. And I went on to fly that. Again, it's a multiverse where this Q-like Kal Kat guy keeps reappearing, and even the Discovery and then Back in Time and all that. Actually, March Cards is there too. But yeah, he's in there too. Yeah, he's in there. He's on the Klingon ship. The Klingon brother guy is clearly supposed to be Tim, big hulking guy. That's cool, Tim Cantor. Probably not, but it's kind of funny. And the other brother is Jim Tickon, Jim Bucket. He wants to destroy himself or not. Jim Tickon. We have, as they were in the Cillian stories. It's a Kling buff and his brother, Tim. That's who they are. That's the two farmers in the story. We don't know what happened to them in the other series, except in another universe, Kling buff ends up being the Buffkin character, Jim Tickon. Ends up being an alien in the multiverse, flirty alien. He flirts a lot and gets shot down a lot. Anyway, so yeah, so it's a wonderful finale here. Also, we watched the Superman trailer. Awesome. But that had nothing to do with this. This is Paramount. Yeah, at first they didn't want to put episode 10 up so everybody could see it, which was kind of messed up. So I just reset the server and you can watch it. I'm going to give that away. But yeah, it would be cool to meet these guys and go like, yeah. It would be synergy though, because it would be like, oh, this is one of the guys we were borrowing from. Of course, it'd be like an of course moment. I'm sure McMahon would just go, yeah, we've been borrowing from fan stories for like, it's the whole series. It's silly track. Of course it is. I wouldn't be surprised if McMahon said, I went to Evergreen College and I knew you guys. I would not be surprised at all if he was one of those guys from the Evergreen Flyer back in the day. That would explain everything. It'd be like, yeah, that Mike guy. Secretly, it's Mike White Cloud and Yanni the whole time. You didn't know it was him. That could be. Became famous. It's another name. Became famous. And curiously enough, he made the Mariner character and the mother based on his sister and his mom. So there's a mom and sister moment. Even though Mike McMahon is white, sort of white and something else. Yeah, it's odd. I've seen the movie, the Chimera movie, which mentions them. So yeah, Lower Decks has been in quite a show. It had some rough patches in its first 2 years. It was a little too goofy and over the top. It had a simulated cartoon orgy, that kind of thing. It was a little bit. They kept doing the giant Spock from dinosaur Spock dude. It's supposed to be hung up like a dinosaur, but it was giant Spock. They had other goofy stuff that happened. They earlier on they introduced Cito Jaxa as one of the captains on one of the ships, and then they forgot about it, and they had to bring her back and say like, okay, she dies in the other story, but then they ignored that. End of season 4, they just didn't mention it ever again. End of season 4, they realized that the fan backlash was like, oh no, you couldn't have done that. Now some of the books brought back Nick Locarno from Prison Planet too, so I wasn't the only one that thought of that. Just like the Trip Tucker death scene in Enterprise was dumb, and they retconned that too. Retroactive continuity, and said no, he in this other universe he lives. Although T'Pol would be ancient by 2380, absolutely ancient, because 2151 to 2380. Well, she was doing time travel or something. She was a traveler. She'd be ancient. Like that was 100 years before Kirk and Spock. She'd be as old as Sarek. But except for that. Enterprise. Yeah, lots of Kal Kat and Mark's cards. All Cillians. I think they actually accounted for almost all of the Cillian original cast. All through this season of Lower Decks. They had some cameo of somebody that looked like a silly Trek version of their background character. Because they were okay with that. We're not going to give you any money or anything. Of course not. We just put you in the background. Because over there at Titmouse Animation, they're awesome. So, but yeah, but I had nothing to do with it. They just decided to include our fan stuff because they like us. Yay! Also, you could say the God Lady is basically a spoof of Jessie Gender 2, kind of. But not really. No, she's Rumbly. She's Rumbly. Absolutely. I'm younger Rumbly. Rumbly confirms that, yeah, it's me. I'm a Greek demigod space alien thing. Of course. Other parties. Doesn't matter. I don't know about any cast party of Lower Decks people, though, but you can go look up the actors. They're appearing on the Ready Room. You can go look that up and see the actors. I don't know them. It'd be cool to meet them. In fact, if they really want to attract some new fans, they can have them show up at what was the name of that new convention they got? Space something. Let me see my shirt here. Promo. No, not really. I'm not sponsored by GalaxyCon, right? GalaxyCon. That's the convention from the finale of GalaxyCon. That was the convention they were at. Couldn't say because it wasn't a sponsor and still isn't. I'm wearing their merch anyway, so that's the meaning of life. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. Sometimes the church cast shows up at those in the background, some of them. But yes, actually paid homage to them in this last premiere. but not on this show. Although the engineering idea of them chucking the thing into the warp core does go back to FPCM snack group, Chimera, the role playing game thing, Starship Locations back then in the '90s, and yeah, that's what Scott Boys did. He threw a basketball into the warp core and nearly blew the ship up because he thought it would be funny. So that kind of did that here. They like hyperactivate the warp core. Kind of did that. So they paid homage to an old silly story from from that storyline. They must have just read like synopses and stuff, and watched their stuff. Because their channel's not very big in terms of views, but yeah, a lot of views, but not a lot of subscribers. Yeah, a lot of views. It's well known. It's an influencer, the Chimera channel. Go to conventions, they know us. They go, oh, that's that guy from local convention guy. So that's it. Yeah, Lower Decks. It was a fun ride. It was a good homage to the thing. I know that Steve Shive's website does not like any of these member berry shows, and too many member berries. Well, if the show is built around the member berries, then fine. It's Silly Track. Starship Locations. It's Silly Track. It's a fantasy. It's a fan film series. It's been a fan film. So and it's a legit, original, legit Paramount fan film. If you treat it as that, then it's perfectly acceptable. I said, okay, this isn't supposed to be connected. It's just a fan film, and that's perfectly acceptable as a Star Trek story. It's when it gets weird and Guard that he doesn't like it. It's when the characters are out of place that he doesn't like it. But it is a multiverse. There's been several iterations of Star Trek since the time of... Even the Next Generation was sort of a different universe, even. Some of it didn't match up. It was 78 years later. It was after Kirk and crew. It was supposed to be completely separated from it. So yeah, so that was my review of Lower Decks Season 5, and roundaboutly a recap of the universe, where they go from there. A lot of them we don't know where they go from there. We know that the slightly hair-receding balding captain guy with a mustache, the officer, the lieutenant guy on the ship, is it just a Cal Hazel type of clone going in and out of space? It's just Cal Hazel as he was in 2006. That's all that guy is. And then they showed a later, older version of him there on the, which is the same guy, in a slightly different outfit, engineering outfit. Or that other guy could be Mr. Story, but he's not. He's not. I don't know if Billups ever got laid. Yeah, no. Because if you go back to the Lower Decks, see, that was his whole shtick, was when he met his space parents, they were like, no, he was a prince, and they said, you're going to be a king if you get laid. That was his character. Just so you know, that's what that is, that joke. I had to explain it. I know you don't explain a joke, but I had to explain why he said that. Because he was supposed to be a prince. Also, before I go, Boimler, there's a precedent for Boimler and the purple hair. The series New Frontier with the Starship Excalibur, the book series. He is from the planet of the Calhoun. Yeah. Oh, and Beckett Mariner was on the Enterprise D, and would have, as character, retconned into the series, of course, because she didn't actually exist back then. She's the sister of McCain in real life, and so she's back in the series, and it was like she started on the Enterprise D, and some of the fans were saying like, "Oh, Beckett Mariner must have been at the Borg thing and seen the Borg and done the Borg." I don't know why they were on about the Borg thing. And she would have seen the Borg thing. Well, she would have been a teenager when she saw the Borg thing. She would have been like a young teenager, because she's clearly younger than Nick Locarno and Wesley. It's clearly about Wesley's age, the character is. So, yeah, she would have been a young teenager during the Borg attack. She wasn't on the ship anywhere, so I'm guessing she was with the civilian crew at that point and going to go into Starfleet in Wesley Crusher. So Beckett Mariner is, about Wesley, a little younger than Wesley in the story. So now she would be 53 or something, somewhere around there. That'd be about right. That'd work. But back in Lower Decks, it's 30 years ago. Oh, 20 years ago. So she'd be 20 years ago. Yeah, 30 years ago. So she would have been 20 on Lower Decks. The actress, however, is in her 30s. So that just confuses everything. So most of the Lower Deck people are in their early 30s on Lower Deck in real life, but they're playing people that are earlier in the 20s, which makes sense. Because if you did the math, 2000, if you did the math based on Wesley Crusher, the Academy, because you kind of have to, because Mariner met Locarno and Cito and Wesley, and she was a cadet, so she's at most 17 in that scene when they met each other in 2368. She's at most 17. And so then you jump ahead to, the final mission and all that stuff. So yeah, she would have been 17 in 2360s, late 2360s. And she would have been much younger during the Borg thing. She would have been like 15. She would have been a civilian on the ship during the Borg thing. And that's how Riker knew her mother and father, or at least the mother, because there were civilians on the ship, and they probably came across each other in 10 Forward. Yeah, they probably encountered each other. That's the Mariner backstory, Mariner Freeman backstory. It would have been the Freemans on the ship. And Ransom is the commander, and now he's the captain. So, anyway, that's just Beckett Mariner is the one that's tied to the other story. And Boimler is so then Boimler is from the Calhoun planet, the Mackenzie Calhoun planet from that series. Hey, this is David Mack. Star Trek New Frontier book series. Star Trek New Frontier book series by Peter David. Ran from 1997 to 2015. And they included a Brad Boimler type of guy, the captain of the ship, the Excalibur. And Elizabeth Shelby was his first officer, and she became eventually Admiral of the Enterprise G, or F, Enterprise F in Picard Season 3. Apparently it was blown up, so she kept it under the Enterprise F. Long-standing book series that ran through all the eras of early Chimera and Starship Locations, but of no relation to us. Just a parallel sort of universal books, Star Trek books. Yeah, so it's not that long a series. I mean, 1997 to 2015 is like 8 years. It took them a little while to make each book, so it's like there's a few books. You can look it up. It's not to be confused with Hidden Frontiers, which it was different. Too, I don't know if there probably was a Leon in there somewhere. Yeah. So anyway, let's see who else that would have been in there. The other side. There's a Leon. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. Anyway, so Lower Decks. It would be interesting to meet Mike McMahon and compare notes, and be all like, we're totally aware of fan stories like yours, and totally just looked over your scripts and just borrowed your novel. They should read them more. I want them to read them so my books make money. And then buy my book. Buy my book. I've adapted some of them already. Fallen Planet, for one thing. Fallen Angel Planet. Lot of Easter eggs going on there. And in this one. And so I included Mackenzie Calhoun as a Q, who appears in my premiere episode. So you get to see him. They made an action figure, so I bought him. Put him in the story. Yeah, they made an action figure. Exclusive action figure. They've only made like 10,000 of them. So yeah. That's why the Canary space story is set 70 years after Legacy, because we wanted to set it so far off that you couldn't have older Tam and Kestra walk into the ship and save the crew. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to have our own crew doing their thing. And the Vanguard one, there's going to be a Vanguard one. That one's set at the same time. That one's actually further on, but we pulled it back to be about the same time. Just because, sure, it's about the same time. So that way they could interact, because they probably would. And they have similar costumes. So it's so there's actually a spin-off of Canary in the works called Vanguard, so it's based on that starship. all those Cillian novels, the rest of the Cillian novels. We didn't adapt all of them. We adapted the good ones, like Canary Space and Vanguard Space. And we're like, yeah, but we want to do Vanguard Space too. Yeah, that'll be one book or a trilogy of stories, 3 movies, just like the other one was. But we're only doing season 1 of Vanguards, according to Mark's cards. So just do season 1. Just do season 1 of Canary Space for now too. Well, just do 3 of those and then do a Starcracker one. Because really, the second season of the Starcrackers one is a little weird. It was a bunch of short novels stuck together, and it's just not as it's not bad, but it's not as good. Yeah, so show your best stuff first. So even the actor Jack Quaid probably only half-handedly knows this, but he is a Calhoun, and Mackenzie of Calhoun was a captain of the Starship Excalibur, the Next Generation one, not the OG one. The OG Excalibur 2 rebuilt one was captained by Joseph Kuriesman. I just thought I'd shout out to another fan film we were in, which never got finished. Just this one pilot. Yeah, during the Chimera years, 2006, that started. Yeah, they got theirs out by 2010, and then they made a spin-off sort of a thing with another ship, and they used some of the New Frontier sets. Not the New Frontier sets. They used the sets from. Looks like they used the sets from. They went to Florida or something. Did the sets from, Continues Phase 2. Yeah. Phase 2 or Continues. I think it was Continues. They used their set to do They did a few episodes. Eventually, they did get to do some episodes on the Farragut instead. So that's fun. but yeah, they did eventually do something. But Chimera came out in 2019, so they got ahead of us. They came out, or did they? Because the Farragut stories came out in around 2019, about the same time. So anyway, but they were live action, so they were different. And no, we were not related in any way to Axanar. Although it is interesting they called that the Defiant ship the Axanar. Kind of sounds a little like there's Axanar in there, but no. No, we weren't related to Axanar. Anyway, no, we weren't related to that guy or to the Observations guy that posts on Campy Show on occasion. In any way, we've never met the Trek Yards guys directly. We were on this podcast a couple times. Yeah, kind of fun. But that was about it. The Trek Yards guy and the Jesse Gender podcast too. Yeah, so I haven't met them in person. That'd be cool. Yeah, yeah. It's been fun emulating that whole thing. Rambling on about the finale here, the next generation, and our tip of the hat to them is the Lost Generation pilot episode of this, or premiere of this season. Tendy's not in our pilot episode because the rumbly character as the demigod kind of acted like her. So I thought that was kind of like, okay, that would be acted like her like current self, and it was like, okay, that would be a little weird if she was in 2 places at once and it's not the queue, it's just there. She'd have nothing to do. She would have walked in and said like, oh hi, I'm here, and then walked out. Yeah, do something else with Tendy. We did enough Tendy last season. Not literally did, not like, ew, oh god, yeah. No, not that kind. Did not do Tammy Newsom, no. Well, never met her. Although they'd show up at a convention, that would be cool to meet them. Or last season, and Will Wheaton, yeah, Wesley was finally at a convention. Yes, just so we don't say shut up, Wesley. I'm not going to do that. Picard was a meanie. Oh. Anyway, so just didn't like kids. Which makes it, yeah, and even yeah, that Dr. Crusher's son thing doesn't make a lick of sense. And they could have made it make a lick of sense. That guy, yeah. Ed Spleers was there too, and it's not like, and he's like 35, but he looks 35. He doesn't look like he's 20-something. So he couldn't have been born in 2381 when Dr. Crusher left the Enterprise. He must have been born in the 2360s when she took a year off from Starfleet. That must have been when he was born. So they knew they had a kid together, but she just never told anybody. She put it up for adoption for years. That's the canon story, retcon story. I'm sticking to it. She put him up for adoption, and years later, in 2381, they reconnected. And she said, "Oh, you're my adopted son that I put up for adoption and stuff. I'll rename you Crusher again, even though technically you've been with this other family for 15 years." Because then it makes sense. That synergy makes sense. Oh, yeah. The youngest Star Trek actor, for your trivia stuff, the youngest Star Trek actress on these animated shows is the one who played Rok-Tog. And they have Flicklian, I think her name is. Her dad is a voice actor guy. Yeah, I think her name is something like that. Yeah, she's like a teenager. She's like 14. So they can't like cast her in a bunch of stuff because she's actually a little kid. They can't cast her in anything. Coprak would freak out. There are interviews with her. But all the other characters on Prodigy, she was one from Prodigy. She was Rok-Tog on Prodigy. A different show. And the other ones are all in their mid-20s. But she's actually, what's weird is Jacob Pog is in his late 40s. The guy playing that guy is a comedian guy. It's kind of weird that he'd be hanging around teenagers on the ship, but I guess he is. Whatever. I thought it would be interesting to say what happens to the characters from Lower Decks after the present. What happens to them after the Cerritos, and they're according to at least our fan film series. Because our fan film series is set in 2401 to 2413 or so. So, something around there. And so, what were they all like? Well, there are hints as to what happens to them. It appears fairly obvious that Brad Boimler marries Beckett Mariner. They become a married couple, and in the future, in one timeline of the multiverse, and they become married. They're a little estranged, but they're married. They're a little on the edge in the story. Mariner goes on to captain the Starship Legacy in her 50s, and flies around on Starship Legacy, the current series. Boimler and his clone appear again later. They do a bunch of stuff, different characters, including playing the character of the clone reappears in 2388 under the guise of the young man known as Vince Mahoney on Starship Chimera. Is actually Boimler. The clone is Mahoney, not revealed until later that it's Mahoney, played by the Carrie action figure. And then we have so he's around, and he eventually marries Crass, the person from that. They were both on the Cardassian colony prison planet. They ended up on Daklala, and they were rescued. It's all timey-wimey stuff. He ended up in the past and the future and present. So he's in disguise as the other guy. They never said how old he was, though, so that works. 2376, he could have been. Yeah, he's in his 30s already on the show, so he's in his 50s, 2400. So yeah, you have, and then we have Tendi and Rutherford. They also end up getting married, and they end up showing up in the story. Tendi becomes the science officer and the doctor in training on the Starship Chimera A, and eventually the ship's doctor on the Legacy. So Rutherford ends up sort of a freewheeling guy going around doing engineering things in the multiverse. So that's what ends up him. Apparently they solved the Locarno thing through timey-wimey dimensional things, and in this universe, and and Nick Locarno, a version of him, goes back into time, and it's actually supposed to be him. He's kind of a traveler. He goes back into time and marries Ezra Dax, and she becomes Ezra Locarno, and they have a kid named Tamara Locarno. Yeah, by the 2400s, and then she's around, so she can be friends with Kestra Riker from the other story. We have all this connection to the Starship Locations. The lore completely makes sense now that they revealed the multiverse thing that could all be. They got these other people from all these other universes. It all works out. It's awesome. I always thought they based them on the Libby and Chris from Pine Hill, even though that's not possible. I know that's not possible. They wouldn't have known that. But if they read the Cillian stories, they would have. And they've been out since 2019 on the internet, so they would have seen them. Also, they would if it's 40-year Adani, their planet would have a Venus-like orbit, and their years would seem like they're 200, but it's just that their years are quicker. They would actually be 100, it would be the same. But they didn't think about that at the time. They weren't thinking about it. Half the planets in Star Trek don't make any sense, and we've been over that before. They'll go to Rigel, which is a giant star, or they'll go to Vega or something. Like, how did you get to Rigel? Oh, there's no planet. Yeah. Or they'll throw in Deneb, because there's like 5 different stars that have Deneb something, part of the creature, part of the whale, part of the bird, part of the whale. They'll throw in Centaurus or Cetus, the whale, Cetus, yeah, Ceti, Tau Ceti, Tau Alpha C and Tau Ceti, and all that. Yeah, that was even a mistake in Next Generation. Tau Ceti. She didn't mean to say Tau Ceti. She meant to say Tau Alpha C, whatever that is. She messed up. Yeah, some planets are named by bloopers. Yeah, and Rigel 10 in Enterprise, because I was there. Rigel 10 in Enterprise was Rigel, as in Rigel Kentaurus 10, because they go right to it instantly. Proxima system, so it's right next door. That's where they were. So Rigel Kentaurus 10. So guess where that is. It's not Rigel the red star, it's Rigel Kentaurus 10. 10th planet in the Alpha Centauri system. Anyway, yeah. You didn't invite me to the cast party. And I told her there wasn't a cast party. There wasn't one. There was a volunteer party last night, but it was the volunteers. She could have come to that. It would have been fine, but yeah. Oh, I'm not invited. I can't come. Yeah, we were on about that in the story. Anyway, so yeah, they went back. And the other 2 didn't. Again, aren't going to show up at the other. Actually, it's the merge from the year before. They didn't have 2024 shirts. They were all gone. Yeah, so GalaxyCon, which replaces Adam Savage's Silicon and Comic-Con before that. I don't know if Savage is going to show up at this. That would be kind of cool. The new one doesn't have all of its cast arranged yet. And the new Fanime is in June this year. June, because it goes along with another one of their anniversaries. They already had the 40th anniversary. So they're going to do, it's 42 at this point, isn't it? Yeah. The Kal Kat guy. And they cannot deny it. And earlier the fans were wondering if the Adam Soong character in Picard Season 2 was the Kal Kat, is Data playing the Kal Kat. Yes, absolutely. That's who that character was. It's to be me as an evil mogul. That's who that was. It's weird that Brent Spiner, one of my favorite characters, was playing me. They could have cast me as the character. That would have been surreal. But they didn't do that. But no, he was the Cillian guy in the story. Yeah, so that was weird. Yeah, so Adam Soong, it was a villain guy. But yeah, it wasn't really, but it was. Also, you have a Discovery. You have Cal with a K and Sue Cal from Jung Swan. You know, one episode the season where Sue Cal blew up the universe using the burn. He turned evil. He's Holocat. He's Holocat. Well, so, guys, Paramount, hire us. We can help. Yeah, Brown and Yeager, Cat and Cards, can come back, right, for Star Trek. Yeah, just let us do it. Let us do a Star Trek. Our fan films will continue, nonetheless. Yeah, there's a lot of that. I'm sure we will review Section 31 when it comes out. Yes. And we'll review the other ones. Starbase 80 and all the other ones. Strange New World Season 3 is coming out soon, and they would have to end that pretty soon because that run right up against Captain Kirk getting the Enterprise. So Season 3 is going to really have to be it, because it's going to be 2364 in the end of Season 3. So that's going to have to end this season, I would think. because they can't unless it's a completely different timeline, which I think it probably is. It's probably its own timeline because none of the Kelvinverse stuff matches up, so they can do their own thing. It really doesn't. It's fun. The Ship of the Valkyries thing is fun, but we've done that too. But yeah, Strange Worlds was our first season of Starship Locations, and then the other two, Destinations and all that. Yeah. So yeah. Currently in Legacy. Currently, really trying to get people to make a Star Trek Legacy series. So we're doing all our fan film best. We want this to happen. Don't go back, go forward. Legacy goes forward to 2413 this season. Legacy goes forward. Although production wise, Mark's Cards and I decided that we said, well, it can go anywhere. It can go a little further back in the next one if it wants to, but only back to about 2402. If it wants to, they can be a flashback to that. We can't go any further back than that because you don't want it to be like retconned and make an origin story out of it. They can be a flashback to 10 years earlier, 8 or 9 years earlier, if you want. But you don't have to. So our universe is fluid. Do whatever you want. But yeah, did I miss anybody? Oh yeah, what happened to the cat? Oh yeah, the cat doctor. The cat doctor, Tiana, who is a Kaiten and a Xindi, a cat alien from the Larry Niven cat lady, similar to Emrys from the OG Kaiten. The Kaiten and the Xindi are these two other cat races from that, and she ends up being kind of a roguish traveler character as well in the later in life, going on around in space. Shax has apparently expired again, but who knows? Maybe he might show up again. There's no action figure for him. Yeah, she shows up, comes around, and it's she's a cat, so. Well, yeah, it's the Kazinti lady, and she appears in the pilot as the dentist lady in Esri's toothache scene, which is kind of funny. Which is inspired by an actual story by Nicole DeBauer from the convention. It's actually inspired by that. And it also is coincidentally inspired by a moment by the original Brazil trip story, where Rumsey's mother is the one with the toothache. But yeah, we had to change some characters around because it isn't actually them; it's her Q version conjuring her. Because we didn't actually want to put their family in the story. That's a little weird. So it's just them imagining Esri's her mother. It's fine, sure, why not? Esri, Dax, and mother, and then the mother is. So it's Tamara who's imagining the story, not Rumsey. Tamara, and the Greek god. Anyway, so the Abbeys, they show up too. Yeah, inspired by other things. That's our stuff. That's not their stuff. So yeah, what happens to the other lower deckers? Assuming the Cerritos was destroyed at some point and replaced by the Cerritos A. It's story-wise. Story-wise, the Starship Locations takes place just before the series Star Trek Picard, really, if you go back, or at least after season 1 of Star Trek Picard. In that same universe. Yeah, after season 1. Because they reference season 1 in the first season of Locations. Although the original story, the Starship Chimera, the Destiny device, took place in 2388, 5 years after the star. I can go back and watch that and see I was showing you the Q Continuum as a Playmates action figure style sized Q Continuum, in which lighting, visuals, and rigging was done by some of my relatives while I filmed the Q people in the Q universe, which is, of course. There are a lot of there in the background. I also played a Transformer episode in one of at the same time. Yeah. But yes,